Greetings, Internet viewers. It's your old pal Oxleymations here again with another Oxleymations presentation. Now, for today's particular video, I'm doing another, shall we say, a showing off of a new piece for the collection. Only for today's video, I didn't have to order something that came in a box and have to wait for that to show up in the mail. Yesterday, my dear viewers, I actually got to make a nice little drive out to meet the person who was selling this item in person. And I was able to purchase it from them for cheaper than if I had to pay shipping costs. So you may have noticed that on the shelf behind me, I have my Simon Says and my Mo Howard ventriloquist figures, I should say, the ones made by the Horseman Doll Company, with the hard plastic chest and the head stick and all that. Can any of y'all tell me how many different characters the Horseman Doll Manufacturing Company created in this style? With the head stick and the hollow body and all that. I'll give you a couple seconds. See if you can figure it out. If you do, then put it in the comment section down below. And, well, if you don't, well, then you don't. There's no real prize to this. It's a fun little thing, I think. So, here's a hint. There were only 3. I'm not wearing a watch, but I'm checking my wrist anyway. All right. You ready, folks? The Horseman Doll Manufacturing Company made 3 different dolls, 3 different figures of this type, as I already said. There was initially the first figure they made was Simon Says. The second figure they made was the one I have just off screen here that I finally was able to find for a decent price. And the third one they made was Mo Howard. The second figure in this configuration that I'm referring to was Mickey Mouse. If you got that correct, awesome. And if you didn't, well, if you didn't even try, then, well, good for you. But anyway, yes. Back in around 1973, according to the copyright date on the back of his neck, Mickey Mouse here was created by the Horseman Doll Company. Now, there's some speculation about whether he was available exclusively through Disney parks or whether Disney had an exclusive version. That I do not know. What I do know is that this particular version with the red jacket, the black bow tie, this guy was sold through the Sears Christmas Wish Book, and potentially earlier in the year of 1973, but I've found scans of Sears Christmas Wish Books from 1973 containing images of this particular little figure. Also, interestingly, just want to point this out, in that particular Sears Christmas Wish Book, they mistakenly called Simon Says over here Willie Talk. They were advertising him as the 30-inch version of Willie Talk. But, as everyone knows, or at least most people know, written on his shirt right there, which I can't tell if that's in frame, but right here it's written on his shirt on most of these figures, his name, which is Simon Says. So yes, Mickey Mouse here, at least this version, was available through the Sears Wish Book back in 1973. There's also a second version that I alluded to, but we'll get to that when we do the actual dummy diaries about Mickey Mouse here. Did you just call me a dummy? No, I called you a ventriloquist figure. The show is called Dummy Diaries. You're on a show? Yes, I do. Oh, well, I'll be. Yeah, I'm not the greatest at doing Mickey Mouse's voice. No, but then again, toward the end of his tenure as my voice actor, neither was Walt Disney. Oh. So anyway, I'll be doing a more in-depth version of a video about Mickey here when I do that Dummy Diaries video. There's that word again. And I will, in that video, be telling you more of what I know of, the history of the Horseman Doll's Mickey Mouse figure. But what I can tell you in this one, which I guess I'll be I'll be going over a second time in that video, is that there was a lot of speculation that Mickey here was exclusively available through Walt Disney World, through the gift shop. But like I said, I have found information that leads me to believe otherwise. Also, I might as well bring it up now. The Mickey Mouse here is a unique design compared to Mo and Simon, in that, for one thing, he is physically the largest of the Horseman Dolls ventriloquist figures because of the size of his ears up here. If we go ahead and compare him to, Simon, to Simon Says, so you get their feet to match up, you can very clearly tell that Mickey is head and ears above the competition. Nice turn. Thank you. All right, Simon, come on, get back on the shelf. Like a good little puppet. And let's see. Oh, another interesting thing between the two of them, well, between the three of them, Mickey has a unique sculpt for his hands. Whereas these guys back here, they've got your like standard human like doll hands, with the keep almost showing his butt to the camera because his hand is rotated the wrong way. But he's got like the four fingers and the thumb orientation like that. Mickey here, being based on a cartoon character, he gets the cartoony three-fingered glove style hands. And he is the only figure that they made with those kind of hands. So if you happen to find let's say you find a Simon Says that someone's selling, and he happens to have these kind of gloves, then that's a Simon Says head on a Mickey Mouse body. Or someone swapped out the arms. Regardless, aside from the head and the hands, the rest of this guy is basically set up like Simon and Mo over there. Oh, and one last thing to finish off this video before it gets too long is the fact that the woman I purchased him from, Mickey here was her childhood toy. And she held on to him all the way from 1973 until just yesterday. She kept him in really good shape. Well, for the most part, he's got some like little don't know how well it'll show up on the camera, but some like scuffs and like some paint wear on his ears and like on the tip of his nose. But considering that he was such a well-loved plaything by her for all these years, she kept him in relatively good shape. She even, to my surprise, had replaced the original rubber band in there, which, funny enough, she left the remnants of that rubber band in there. She just took a piece of that stretchy, like, elastic cord that you can get for, like, making beads and, doing craft stuff, and replaced that. She also originally replaced the rubber band that holds his head in place with one of those, but she did her best, but it was very, very loose, so I went ahead and replaced that with an actual regular rubber band, so his head sticks on better. Also, I got to have a bit of a Toy Story 3 ending moment with her. Because I figured she just, found this Mickey in like a junk shop or a thrift store, maybe at the Goodwill, and she was reselling him or some such. And I didn't think she had any emotional attachment to the, little guy. So she handed him over to me, and I was giving him a quick look over, just check in, make sure his clothes weren't damaged, and making sure his mouth actually worked and everything. And then, without really thinking about it, I'm making myself a little emotional thinking about it in retrospect, because, again, I made the mental association with Toy Story 3, and that end scene with Woody and Andy and Bonnie, it chokes me up. But anyway, without thinking about it, after doing that, and I made sure the mouth trigger worked and everything, I just kind of turned him to look at her, and I was like, in my poor Mickey Mouse impression, well, it's been nice knowing you. For just a split second, You know how, for those who've seen Toy Story 3, when Bonnie, she's playing with Andy's toys after he gave them to her, and she just kind of goes like, with Woody's hand, and Andy gets that weird look of emotion, like, goes to his car and drives away. Pardon? After I had Mickey do well, it's been nice knowing you. Her entire face scrunched up. Like, she went from, amused, like, huh, to like, oh. But then she, like, quickly swallowed that back down. I gave her the money for Mickey. She took it and she was like, thanks. And she quickly, hastily got in her car. And it wasn't until we were leaving, my sister and I, because she went with me because going on such a long drive to get this guy, I didn't want to be, alone in the car by myself for all that time. Just in case something went wrong, or, you never know what's going to happen with a Facebook marketplace transaction like that. Anyway, it wasn't until she and I were driving away that I was thinking about it, and it clicked. And I was like, huh. So later, when I got home, I messaged her, basically thanking her again for selling Mickey to me, and I also apologized if I made her emotional. And she was like, she said basically something to the effect of, that's okay, sometimes we just need to let go. And through that little conversation, she also revealed to me that it was, the Mickey here was in fact her childhood toy, and she had, and I quote, never shared him with anyone. So that's when the parallels between Andy and Woody and the woman and Mickey became even more solid in my mind. And now, thinking about it, I get emotional. Because I've said before in previous videos that the reason why I like, buying and fixing up all these old dolls and toys and figures and stuff is because at one point in time, most of these would have been, the kid's best friend, their little buddy. So, getting to see that in real time, it broke me a little bit. But I assured her that Mickey is going to have a good home in my care. He'll be well looked after and well taken care of. Got myself crying. And that was basically the end of our interaction. Partly because I couldn't think of what to say after that, because she was like, great to know that he's in good hands, and I hope you'll have a lot of fun and a lot of enjoyment with Mickey. So yeah. You gotta use both arms to hold him up now, because getting all weepy and stuff over here is making me feel kind of weak. What do you grow up? Never. So, yeah. This has been your introduction to the newest member of my ventriloquist figure collection. And stay tuned, folks, because I've got my motivation back. And in the coming weeks, you're going to start seeing a lot more videos from me. They're not going to be like all in the same week. They're going to be spread out a bit. But it's going to be a fun ride. And speaking of rides, this one ain't over, and not by a long shot. So stay tuned. With that said, this has been Oxleymations and Nicky Mouse saying, well, for one thing, if you like what you've seen here today, feel free to like, share, and hype up this video if that option's underneath my videos, because apparently that's a thing now. Also, feel free to share my content with your friends if you think they'd like it. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, y'all know what to do. I have a Ko-fi, Ko-fi, and that'll be linked in the description down below. Ko-fi/Oxleymations. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/Oxleymations. Again, the links to those will be down below. But with all of that out of the way, like I already just said, this has been Oxleymations and Nicky Mouse for the second time saying, viewers beware and subscribe if you dare. Later.